Tonight, we have to talk about the difference between a wave and the tide. Because a wave is what we usually see in the news cycle. It's loud, it crashes, it's white water and noise, and it's what you can see from the beach. But the tide is different. The tide is the massive, silent, unstoppable movement of the entire ocean, shifting because of gravity, shifting because of things happening way out in space that you can't even see. And for about 9 years now, we have been watching the waves. We've been watching the rallies, the tweets, the social media outbursts, the procedural motions that look like wins, the appeals that look like losses, the circus that surrounds the man who has made a career, a literal lifetime, out of turning the American legal system into a high-stakes game of catch me if you can. But what happened today, what just landed on the docket with the weight of a lead pipe, isn't a wave, it's the tide, and it is coming in. If you want to understand how a person avoids the consequences of their actions for half a century, you have to understand the specific utility of time. Time is the greatest defense attorney in the history of the world. If you can stretch a week into a month, if you can turn a month into a year, if you can turn a year into an election cycle, you win. Not because you're right on the law, not because you're innocent of the facts, but because you outlast the people asking the questions, you outlast the prosecutors, you outlast the public's attention span. You outlast the very institutions that are supposed to hold you to account. That has been the playbook. It's a good playbook. It's worked for him since the 1,970 seconds in New York City real estate. It worked through 2 impeachments. It worked through the slow-motion car crash of the special counsel investigations. But there is a specific, quiet corner of the law where time stops being a tool and starts being a cell. It's a place called a sealed proceeding. And while the world was watching the cameras, while the world was focused on the political horse race and the polling in the swing states, a door was closing in a room where no cameras are allowed. For over a year, under the cover of total judicial secrecy, the Supreme Court of the United States hasn't just been weighing arguments, they have been building a box. And tonight, they didn't just close the lid, they locked it. We aren't talking about a symbolic rebuke here. We aren't talking about a judge saying, Mr. Trump, we'd really appreciate it if you'd cooperate. We are talking about the end of the line. The phrase the court used is exhausted. In the legal world, when your claims are exhausted, it means you have run out of road. You have reached the cliff. There are no more turns, no more exits, no more to be continued captions. The court has ordered, not requested, ordered the turnover of records that go to the very heart of the financial and international web that this man has spent a lifetime hiding. And here is the kicker, the thing that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up if you're a lawyer. They gave him 72 hours, not 72 business days. Not 72 hours starting after the next appeal, 3 days. In 72 hours, the clock strikes midnight on the era of delay. This is a procedural maneuver so tight, so airtight, that it bypasses the usual spin cycle entirely. You can't tweet your way out of a contempt order. You can't fundraise your way out of a fixed deadline. And the reason this is so dangerous, the reason the mood behind the scenes is reportedly shifting from the usual bravado to something closer to genuine, cold sweat panic, is because the court has removed the one thing he always relies on, the ability to say no and wait for the world to move on. Think about what it means to be a procedural lock. It means the arguments about immunity, done. The arguments about executive privilege, settled. The arguments about whether a candidate for president is somehow magically shielded from the same laws that apply to you and me? The court has said, quite clearly, no. They have engineered a situation where the law is no longer a conversation, it is an instruction. And if that instruction is ignored, the enforcement isn't a maybe or a will see. The enforcement is the marshals. The enforcement is jail. This is the moment where the mythology of the uncheckable man meets the reality of the Article 3 branch of the government. And why now? Why this way? Because the court, in its institutional wisdom, or perhaps its institutional exhaustion, has realized that the only way to deal with a litigant who uses time as a weapon is to take the clock away. By keeping this under seal for a year, They denied him the ability to turn the process into a political rally. He couldn't attack the judges because he wasn't allowed to acknowledge the case existed. He couldn't smear the witnesses because he didn't know who they were. The system worked in the dark to ensure that when the light finally turned on, there was nowhere left to run. This isn't just a legal defeat. It's a structural collapse of a decades-long defensive strategy. We are looking at the final 72 hours of a game that has been played since the 1,970 seconds. And for the first time, the House isn't just winning, the House is closing the doors and calling the debt due. The optional phase is over. The trap is locked. For Donald Trump, time has finally run out.